हेलो दोस्तों, स्वागत है आप सभी का हमारे चैनल इग्नो सेंटर पर। तो दोस्तों, आज हम आपको MEG 05 का सॉल्व असाइनमेंट प्रोवाइड कराएंगे और हम आपको पहले बता दें कि आप क्वेश्चंस कहाँ से डाउनलोड कर सकते हैं। तो दोस्तों, आपको गूगल पर जाकर इग्नो असाइनमेंट क्वेश्चन पेपर 2020-21 लिख देना है। वहाँ आप जैसे सर्च बटन पर क्लिक करेंगे, आपको नीचे स्क्रॉल करने के बाद असाइनमेंट का टॉपिक दिखने को मिल जाएगा। असाइनमेंट के टॉपिक के नीचे आपको जो ब्लू कलर पर बॉक्सेस दिखेंगे, वहाँ पर आपको फोर्थ लाइन पर MEG का बॉक्स मिल जाएगा। वहाँ पर आप क्लिक करेंगे तो आपको जो है वो आपको MEG जुलाई 2021 टू जनवरी 2022 का सेशंस का जो क्वेश्चन है वो देखने को मिल जाएगा। और आप जैसे MEG 05 पर क्लिक करेंगे, आपको MEG 05 का क्वेश्चन डाउनलोड करने का ऑप्शन दिखेगा। और दोस्तों, हमारा जो क्वेश्चन है वो डाउनलोड होकर आ चुका है। उसके बाद में आप देख सकते हैं मास्टर्स डिग्री इन इंग्लिश MEG असाइनमेंट फॉर जुलाई 2021 एंड जनवरी 2022 सेशन लिटरेरी क्रिटिसिज्म एंड थ्योरी MEG 05। तो दोस्तों, आपकी जो क्वेश्चन है वो आपको यहाँ पर पूरी देखने को मिल जाएगी। आपको किस प्रकार से आपका असाइनमेंट सबमिट करना है वो भी हम आपको ये वीडियो पर बताएंगे, और आपको हम जो इम्पोर्टेंट इंस्ट्रक्शन है वो पहले बता दें। तो दोस्तों, जो नंबर 6 पर इंस्ट्रक्शन दिया गया है, यू शुड राइट इन योर हैंड राइटिंग। आपको अपनी राइटिंग पर लिखना है जो असाइनमेंट है आपकी, और आपकी जो सबमिशन है उसके बारे में बता दें। तो दोस्तों, द कंप्लीट assignment should be sent to the coordinator of the study center allotted to you by 31st March 2022 if enrolled in the July 2021 session and 30 September 2022 इफ़ एनरोल इन द जनवरी 2022 सेशन। तो दोस्तों, अगर आपने जुलाई 2021 में एडमिशन लिया है तो आपका जो लास्ट डेट रहेगा सबमिशन का 31 मार्च 2022 रहेगा। और अगर आपने जनवरी 2022 सेशन पर एडमिशन लिया है तो आपका जो लास्ट डेट रहेगा असाइनमेंट सबमिशन का वो 30 सितंबर 2022 रहेगा। तो दोस्तों, आपको ये पूरी जो गाइडलाइंस है वो पढ़ लेनी है। उसके बाद में जो हमारा मेन टॉपिक है आपका जो MEG 05 का लिटरेरी क्रिटिसिज्म एंड थ्योरी का जो क्वेश्चन पेपर है वो देख लेते हैं आज, जो आपको 100 मार्क्स कैरी करने में मदद करेगा। ऑल क्वेश्चंस 20 मार्क्स आपको स्कोर करने में मदद करेगा इस पर। और जो आपका नंबर 1 क्वेश्चन है वो है आपका ब्रिंग आउट द साइलेंट फीचर ऑफ प्लूटो अटैक ऑन पोएट्री। नंबर 2, राइट शॉर्ट नोट ऑन द फॉलोइंग। नंबर A, एरिस्टोटल theory of tragedy. Number B, poetry as a man speaking to man. Number C, the woman as the second sex. Number D, base-superstructure relationship in Marxist criticism. Number E, patriarchy. और दोस्तों, आपका जो नंबर 3 का क्वेश्चन रहेगा वो है हाउ आर myth and archetypes examined to grasp the significance of 20th century English writing explained. Number 4, what is structuralism? How is it helpful in grasping the appeal and intent of a literary text? And जो आपका लास्ट क्वेश्चन है वो postmodernism lays special emphasis on identity and differences discussed. तो दोस्तों, आपकी ये पूरी क्वेश्चन है जो हम आपको आज ये वीडियो पर सॉल्व असाइनमेंट प्रोवाइड कराएंगे। तो दोस्तों, ये जो आपका वीडियो है वो पार्ट 3 पर डिवाइड होगा, क्योंकि इसका अगर हम एक वीडियो पर बनाएंगे तो बहुत लंबा बन जाएगा। इसीलिए आप पूरी जो पार्ट है वो पार्ट करके देखिएगा। आपका ये जो वीडियो है वो पार्ट 1 रहेगा। तो दोस्तों, बढ़ते हैं हमारी आंसर्स की तरफ। तो दोस्तों, आपका असाइनमेंट सबमिट करने के लिए आपको कुछ इस प्रकार से फॉर्मेट बनाना होगा। जैसे आपका MEG 05 लिटरेरी क्रिटिसिज्म एंड थ्योरी लिख देना है। उसके बाद में अगर आप इस प्रकार का कहीं से एक फॉर्मेट तैयार कर सकते हैं तो वो कर लीजिएगा। उसके बाद में आपका नेम लिखना पड़ेगा, एनरोलमेंट नंबर, कॉन्टैक्ट नंबर, प्रोग्राम नेम, कोर्स कोड, असाइनमेंट कोड, स्टडी सेंटर, रीजनल सेंटर, और आपका साइन दे देना होगा फर्स्ट पेज में एक PDF बनाकर। उसके बाद में आपका जो सेकंड पेज रहेगा उस पर आप फोटो ऑफ आइडेंटिटी कार्ड का PDF का जेरोक्स करके या ओरिजिनल PDF जो है उसका कलर फोटो प्रिंट करिएगा, सबसे अच्छा रहेगा। उस हिसाब से आपका सेकंड पेज पर वो आपका आइडेंटिटी कार्ड लग जाएगा। उसके बाद में आपका जो थर्ड पेज रहेगा वह आपका क्वेश्चन पेपर का रहेगा। उसके बाद में ही आप जो आपका रिटर्न आंसर शीट है वो पेस्ट करिएगा। तो दोस्तों आपका बढ़ते हैं जो रिटर्न आंसर शीट है उसकी तरफ। तो दोस्तों आपका जो आंसर शीट है वो खुलकर रेडी हो चुका है। आपका जो फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन था वो था नंबर 1, ब्रिंग आउट द साइलेंट फीचर ऑफ प्लूटो अटैक ऑन पोएट्री। और इसका जो आंसर रहेगा वो रहेगा प्लूटो being a philosopher to prove the superiority of philosophy severely attack poetry. Apart from poetry, he criticized every other form of art. Pluto's concepts on art were based on this theory of ideas. He believed that ideas are the ultimate reality. The idea of everything are the original pattern and the thing that are the copies. So he viewed all form of art as merely copies of copy. Twice moved from reality, Plato considered all the form of art like painting, poetry, drama, etc. as inferior and imitation of an imperfect world which is itself is an imitation of ultimate reality. Because Plato did not intend to elevate the value of aesthetic pleasure, rather he wanted to show that art is inferior to ultimate reality, and though art one cannot attain a level of ultimate truth. His ideas and concerns were certainly not artistic but philosophical. He argued art can cause some sort of emotional arousal in the audience, which is not good for an ideal human being. As he visioned in his Platonic utopia. In order to get to the idea of Plato in his republic, talk about the idea of a perfect state and divides it into three different categories. In his utopian state, the philosopher is the administrator and ruler, and they have a great understanding of true nature of things. In this state, poetry is welcome because it is an enemy of reason and does not consider the value of reason much, which is very close to philosopher. And that is why teaching poetry and other art form is not healthy for the creation of perfect moral character, which is required in an administrator. From Plato, Homer should not be taught, because his portrayal of gods and heroes is not ideal. His has portrayal God as human-like, and such a portrayal is not good for the formation of a worthy character. In a similar vein, the traitor must not be appreciated because while enacting plays, actors set their own character and try to put on someone else, which is not praiseworthy, therefore forbidden in Platonic utopia. Apart from the above point, from Plato, art was an imperfect presentation of reality, and the artists sometimes pretend to know things that they are not even aware of. For example, Homer was no military general, nor did he fight any war, but still he write about war's heroes. Homer was also not a teacher of some reputation, but still he is said to have written the words of wisdom on everything. All these points make Plato conclude that art and by extension artists should be abundant in his utopian vision of the state. Let us now take a look at Plato's view of mimesis. Plato's view of mimesis. Historically, the word mimesis or re-enchantment first appeared in such ritual, and the historical origin of the term, as located in Dionysian cult drama, coincides with this meaning in that mimesis in both cases referred to imitation, representation, and expression. It is argued that myth and divine symbols of the ritual are transformed to artistic dramatic representation, through which it became possible to represent the divinity and gods in drama. Tragedy, for instance, is the transformation of the myth and ritual. In a different context, mimesis may refer to the identification. People identify themselves by means of the mimetic ability when they see themselves in the other and perceive a state of mutual equality. In this sense, mimesis is distinct from mimicry, which implies only a physical and no mental reaction. That is, a person regards the other as equal as assume the other to be doing the same in reverse. Associated with the physical aspect of mimesis is its performative aspect, as an actualization or presentation of what has been mimically indicated. Thus, the term mimesis is combined with action-oriented speaking. Plato takes the term mimesis with several meanings and connotation in the dialogue and alter the meaning of the term according to the context in which he used it. He used mimesis in the context of the education of the youth. He discusses the function of mimesis as likening oneself to another in speech and bodily behavior, as addressing the lower part of man's soul. He also referred to the epistemology and metaphysics of the concept. He takes the words mimesis with pedagogic attributes and uses it in educational and aesthetic context. When he says guardian of an ideal state should be educated to imitate only what is appropriate in the third book of the Republic. For instance, Plato provides further definition of mimesis, centering on the relation between mimesis and poetry, mimesis and education, and also poetry and education. Since young people learn essentially the imagination, it is significant to select the models. Mimesis suggests unfavorable effect on the part of the young people, and people is one important source of the youth experience with example and models. Therefore, if the world of models and examples ought to be controlled in the interest of education, poetry must be likewise subject to control. Plato argued the case in the Republic as follows. The youth cannot distinguish what is allegorical from what is not, and the belief they acquire at the age are hard to expungee and usually remain unchanged. What is important that the first story they hear should be well told and dispose them to virtue. The content, form, and representational modes of poetry play an important ethical role in the education of guardian and should, because of the effect they exercise to the mimetic process, be based on ethical principle. Young people should only imitate brave, sober, pious, and noble men, which will increase their strength and will not infect them with weakness. In this sense, it is argued in the Republic that tragedy and comedy as mimetic poetry
represent injustice among the gods in the assertion that gods are responsible for unhappiness. Among people in the Platonic conception, gods cannot be evil, heroes cannot be weak. The poet representation violates the truth, and by representing the deficiencies of gods and heroes has a negative effect on the community and the education of youth. uh, Theory of forms. As Socrates has proposed in the Meno, the most important varieties of human knowledge are really case of recollection. Consider, for example, our knowledge of equality. We have no difficulty in deciding whether or not two people are perfectly equal in height. In fact, they are never exactly the same height, since we recognize that it would always be possible to discover some difference, however minute, with a more careful, precise measurement. By this standard, all of the examples we perceive in ordinary life only approach but never fully attain perfect equality. But nothing that since but notice that since we realize the truth of this important qualification in our experience, we must somehow know for sure what true equality is, even though we have never seen it. Pareto 75b. Plato believed that the same point could be made with regard to many other abstract concepts. Even though we perceive only their imperfect intents, we have genuine knowledge of truth, goodness, and beauty, no less than of equality. Things of this sort are the Platonic form, abstract entities that exist independently of the sensible world. Ordinary objects are imperfect and changeable, but they faintly copy the perfect and immutable form. Thus, all of the information we acquire about sensible objects, like knowing what the high and low temperature were yesterday, is temporary, insignificant, and unreliable, while genuine knowledge of the forms themselves, like knowing that 93 minus 67 is equal to 26, perfectly certain forever. Since we really do have knowledge of these supersensible realities, the knowledge that we cannot possibly have obtained through any bodily experience, Plato argued, it follows that this knowledge must be a form of recollection, and that our soul must have been acquired with the form prior to our birth. But in that case, the existence of our mortal bodies cannot be essential to the existence of our soul before birth or after death, and we are therefore immortal. The supersensible world of Plato must be considered as constituting a multiplicity of subsistent ideas which find their unity in the idea of the good God. Platonic ideas, in fact, are but the realities which reflect the single idea, the good, granted than the idea of the God, good, and of the true and the beautiful. All ideals are at the same time true, good, and beautiful. Therefore, perfect models, the world of ideals is the world of true reality. The existence of a transient world. Ideals presents Plato with new and grave problem regarding cosmic and psychic nature. Both the sensible world and the human intellect participate in the world of transcendence, the first under the form of the essence and the second under the form of ideals. How can this participation be understood? In other words, what is the relationship between the sensible world and that of transcendence. Why are ideas present in the human mind independent of all contact with the sensible world? The attempt to resolve this new problem forms what we will call the cosmology and the psychology of Plato. The lower status of art. The symposium contains Plato other major analysis of beauty. Socrates claimed to be quoting his teacher Ditima on the subject of love, and in the lesson attributed to her, she calls beauty the object of every love yearning. She spells out the soul progress towards ever purer beauty, from one body to all. Then, though all beautiful soul lost and kind of knowledge to arrive at beauty itself. Two remarks suggest that works of art count as beautiful things. Diotima described the poet task as the begetting of wisdom and other virtues. Ultimately, moved by a desire for what is beautiful, the poet produced work of verses. And who would not envy Homer or Hesiod? And yet, aside from these parenthetical comments, the symposium seems prepared to treat anything but a poem as an example of beauty. In a similar spirit, the Philebus example of pure sensory beauty execute pictures. The Republic contains several tokens of Plato reluctance to associate poetry with beauty. The dialogue first discusses of poetry whose context is education, censors poems that corrupt the young. Then almost immediately Socrates is speaking of cultivating a fondness for beauty among the young guardian. Their taste for beauty will help them prefer noble deeds over ugly vulgar ones. How can Plato have seen the value of beauty to education and not mention the subject in his earlier criticism? Why couldn't this part of the Republic so much as concern that false and pernicious poems affect the young thought their beauty? If anything, Plato takes pains to prevent beauty from appearing in poetry. Republic called the beauty of poetic lines a deceptive attractiveness. Take away the decorative language that make a poetic sentiment sound so right and put it into ordinary words, and it become unremarkable, much as young people faces beautified by youth later show themselves as the plain looks they are. So friends, till here your question number 1 was finished, and in our next part, which is our part 2, we will deal with our next question, which is our question number 2. So hope you all like the session of the video, and if you are new to our channel, please make like, share and subscribe so that you will get an update if the next session was held in our channel. So friend, hope you like the session. Thank you.